global or regional challenges. And international cooperation in higher education, skills development, and learning mobility is fundamental for addressing those present and future challenges. So that's why we decided to push for this flagship in the strategic way. As we know that the number of sub-Saharan students that go abroad to get their university degree is increasing fast. Between 2015 and 2020, this increase was 21%. So nearly 430,000 sub-Saharan African students went to a foreign university for their degree in 2020. International learning mobility for students and researchers can be a powerful way to reinforce one's skills and employability in emerging economic sectors. And for institutions, it can be a way to increase international cooperation, build networks, and increase quality through peer learning. Just recently, Anna was witnessing, we had an exchange with a couple of Namibian Erasmus Plus alumni, and they were all sharing this life-changing experience with us. And I just wanted to check that you are still here with us. Who's been on the international exchange in this room? Please hand up. No, they're all asleep, I'm afraid. Have you been on international mobility exchange? Yes, please, yes, yes. There are a few people here. Okay. Well, I hope that for those of you who've done that, it was a life-changing experience and for the better. And we'll hear more from our young speaker, Linekela, a little bit later, firsthand. So, but in order to achieve that, it is important that this learning mobility between countries on the African continent, as well as to Africa, is promoted. So it's not only about Europe, Africa, one way or both ways even, but also within Africa, within African universities. And I think that we are here in a very good forum to raise this issue and discuss further. Secondly, also, the different forms of mobility opportunities should be available, meaning also short-term mobility to other countries or continents, credits from which can be fully used in the study programs when the students come back. And then thirdly, that the enabling environment for further studies or research or acquiring relevant job opportunities is in place in their home countries. And I must say, I'm sorry to steal the mic for the personal reflection. My thoughts are going now to the numbers of students, young people, and academic staff in Sudan who unfortunately have to flee their country in thousands. And I don't know if there is anyone here from Sudan University, but I think that we should all think about them. So that's the reason why I would like to deepen the EU-Africa engagement in higher education and skill development with a focus on learning, mobility, and youth, that the one that also produces higher chances of employability. The flagship aims to foster the conditions needed for academic and labor market mobility, and also promote Africa as a study destination. So for these 400,000 of African students going abroad, possibly to Europe, there should be another 400,000 coming to Africa for studies. So objectives of the flagship are also to invest in human capital of young people, boost their employability through adequate and modern skills building, as well as promote the participation of young people and active members of societies in Africa and in Europe, and also the human people-to-people interactions and exchanges. We already have successful programs, of which later, under which African and European actors in education and skills development are cooperating together, and we want to build on those. There is scope for expanding such cooperation as the European Union funding has increased substantially since a couple of years back, since 2021. For example, the Erasmus Plus program has been dedicated to Africa more than tripled. The selected projects in Erasmus Plus International Credit Mobility from 2022 only plan to organize mobility for more than 13,100 staff and students between Europe and Africa, and European and African universities. And there are new calls coming up, as I'm sure you know very well, until 2027. So also under this flagship, we would like to bring together youth mobility for Africa, several existing and new EU-funded actions, such as the Erasmus Plus program, of which I mentioned, and its different actions, the Intra-Africa Academic Mobility Scheme, The program called Harmonization of African Higher Education Quality Assurance and Accreditation, as well as the program in support of the African Continental Qualifications Framework, the Young African Leaders Program, and the forthcoming Africa-Europe Youth Academy, of which we can have more details later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gosia. And just as a last question to you, so what would you like to, achieve through this flagship? What is sort of the added value of bringing all these programs under one flag, let's say, under the flagship initiative?
Of course, the European Union, as we all know here, is an organization put together by 27 member states, which has its sort of independent or autonomous budget and life. But we are not the only ones from the EU family to be working with African partners in higher education and mobility. So, of course, our member states and many other actors also do have this type of programs. That's why we need to continuously optimize these opportunities and coordinate, and learning with each other is crucial for that, because of the number of actions and also resources that are viable. And shared and common objectives. And at the same time, the umbrella flagship initiative, which we expect, or we are working to, that it should cover several programs and ideally expand to cover even more. It's an approach that should allow for strengthening and harmonizing initiatives, seeking more synergies and complementarities. We expect that through this flagship initiative, we can improve coordination between European Union and African partners and stakeholders, and increase knowledge exchange and jointly develop recommendations for future programs. So in our opinion, this should be done through providing a common platform for policy dialogue and exchanges, and we would like to develop in the months to come, and would encourage a wide participation of stakeholders active in this field, joining around an agenda to push for more and better targeted opportunities for mobility for academic staff and young people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me turn to you, Prof. Olusola Oyewele. I know that you have been involved in a lot of EU-Africa cooperation. So from your point of view, what are lessons learned from previous cooperation, and what are key points to improve this cooperation, specifically in higher education and when it comes to the mobility, academic mobility and learning mobility?
Yeah, I'm going to say that Africa today has the youngest population in the world. Indeed, it's been said that 70% of sub-Saharan Africa is under the age of 30, to the extent that, since we are talking about youths, the youths hold the key to the future of Africa. And you can also say that the youth hold the key to the development of Africa. And there is an urgent need for us to empower the youths of Africa. And there is no way by which we can empower the youth of Africa without empowering them through the higher education system. So higher education holds a great key. I am aware of some mobility schemes, especially under the EU-Africa initiative, that has been promoting youth empowerment in Africa. I believe that we are discussing this now because we want to see what we can learn from the past mobility schemes. I recall the Erasmus program and the Erasmus Plus that allows a master's degree candidate to connect to about 3 universities at the same time. And when you look at products of the Erasmus program, what is important with them is not the degree they are holding, but the skills and competencies that they are able to acquire through the connections to 3 different countries or 3 different universities. To me today, since we are before vice chancellors, can those of us in Africa replicate the system of the Erasmus? Can 3 vice chancellors in this meeting today connect to each other and agree to a program where they can exchange students within the 3 universities or 3 different countries? and still agree to give them a joint degree. This is one of the lessons that we can learn from the past mobility schemes that has been going on in Europe. It's quite easy. We now have Erasmus+. But the content of those programs is very important. The international outlook of it, and that's why those of us in Africa, ask ourselves, our graduates, what are the skills we imbibe in them to make them employable? I know we've been talking about employability for so many times. What actions have we taken? There is no way we will promote the employability of our graduates without reviewing the type of curricula that we are having in Africa. I'm glad somebody referred to the re-engineering of the curricula that is going on in Nigeria now. I believe that Professor Kubukala will not mind helping other African countries to learn from that re-engineering process. One of the messages I want us to take away from this meeting is that, one, we cannot continue with the curricula of 10 years ago. 5 years curricula that is not reviewed may not meet the needs of the time. So let us all together talk about mobility. What can we do among ourselves? The Erasmus Mobility Program succeeds because leaders of universities were available. They were ready to work with each other. Please, don't let us come to this conference and then go home. Get at least one university that you can connect your university to. In the morning, we talk about partnership. And that partnership started by one vice chancellor visiting another vice chancellor and asking them, what can we do together? I know that in many universities we say that we have values. Do we really put any weight upon the values? Are we proud of the values that we claim? Are we being driven by the values that we've set out for our universities? I think these are things that we need to look at. These are the things that is promoting the quality of the graduates coming from universities outside Africa. And I hope that those of us in Africa, we can connect to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Important words of encouragement. And again, thinking of the long term, what would you say, what would you see as the vision for Europe-Africa relations?
One, for the future, we need to cooperate together. I hope that just as Europe is supporting mobility from Africa to universities in Europe, Europe will also help us in Africa to develop our African mobility scheme, whereby our students will not just be moving to Europe, but our students will be able to move from one university in Africa to another university in Africa, and without losing the same type of competencies that they acquire in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me turn to Ms. Evelina Antoinen, Program Coordinator again at the Embassy of Finland here in Namibia. So, as Ms. Koshela mentioned, of course, the EU doesn't work alone, also works with member states in the EU, but beyond, of course. Could you give us some examples of how you're working with Team Europe, let's say, in collaboration with in higher education together with African countries? I know you're also working in Namibia, so perhaps there's some examples from here.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I'll start with giving a very brief background over the Finnish education system. I promise I won't take many minutes. But I gotta start saying that the Finnish welfare society that we have nowadays, it is built on our education system, which is free for all. It's inclusive, going from the pre-primary until the high education. So we are really proud of our system, and we have seen how much educating the nation from the small kids until they are 18 or older, how much it can give us as a society. Also, the teacher's profession has been highly valued since the historical times, 100 years ago. Currently, the education system that we have shows excellent learning outcomes, top quality teacher training, and also innovative teaching methods, and also a strong ICT sector related to education. Also, our universities, they perform extremely well in international rankings. And Finland also has a long history of cooperation in Namibia, more than 150 years. So these are the things that give us an excellent background in collaborating within the educational sector in Namibia. How do we do this? Well, we would say that Finland has expertise in giving and supporting in pedagogical support, digitalization, and infrastructure development, for example. And to this regard, our approach has been multidimensional, meaning that we can involve Finnish universities, Finnish business life, Finnish experts to collaborate within the higher education sector. And we also have our own tools for the funding, starting from the Finn partnership, which is aimed at for business partnership, or the higher education partnership program, or the Team Finland knowledge program, to mention a few. So we do have these, and we are involved in many things from institution to another. But still, I have to say that Finland is a small country, and I would say that we like collaborating with the European Union because together we are stronger, and within the framework of Team Europe, we can work as experts in these specific areas that I mentioned. Currently, the Finnish institutions such as University of Turku and the University of Eastern Finland, they are involved in Erasmus mobility programs here in Namibia. And there is also the University of Turku, to mention, collaborating in Erasmus capacity building program, aiming at improving the education of health sciences in the Southern African region, not only Namibia, but also in Namibia. We are also looking for ways to participate in different Southern African region to Europe initiatives, such as the Regional Teachers Initiative, and also the opportunity-driven skills for vocational education training in sub-Saharan Africa, to mention a few. Also looking for ways to participate in the foundational skills teaching here in Namibia, specifically to regards of international mobility and teacher training.
Okay, so I hear you have a lot of networking to do to increase, Finland is there to increase collaboration in many levels of education, so that's great. Thank you. Let's pass the mic to Ms. Linekela Shipiki here, student from University of Namibia. And so tell us, you went on an Erasmus Plus exchange. Where did you go?
I went to the Czech Republic.
Czech Republic, okay.
Yeah, yes.
Central Europe.
Yeah.
What was the university called?
Sorry?
Which university did you go to?
Oh, the name is a bit hard to pronounce. It's Hradec Králové. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely pronouncing it better than I would.
Thank you.
So do you believe that, from your point of view, your personal experience,
Yes.
that this exchange as a student, did it contribute positively to your study and employment prospects, you think?
Okay, so let's go to reality now. We talked about these packages and youth flagships, but now it comes to us as students. How did it impact me? And I would say it adventured currently and in the future, it will optimistically contribute in a manner that it enhances my capabilities. And I'll talk about my social skills, my independent skills, and also my academic skills. Yes, I had them from my home university, but they were more enhanced from to my sending my host the host university in Czech Republic. So I would say in the future with my employment skills, I got to have some communication skills that when I apply for interviews, I'm in that selection process whereby I might be taken because of what I acquired throughout in the Czech Republic. Yeah.
Okay, and so and in general, what do you think are the most important aspects for students? Like when you go to an exchange to another university, whether it's in Europe or in another African country, for example, what do you think students really value?
So we students, when we go for these exchange programs, we tend to look at education, at cultural diversity, specifically looking at languages, the cultural behaviors of other students and also other people on the other side. And we also get to see different types of team diversity. We go to network. So education, I cannot only get an education from my university and that's it. I would want to have an exposure of how am I going to be taught on the other side. Students have different perspectives and ways of learning. Maybe in Namibia, I'm good at presentations. I'm not good at writing examination, but I'm good at speaking out and telling people how my examinations went. So these are the different diversities and multiple ways of learning from oral, from presentation, and all these skills enhances us as students. We talk about cultural diversity, language. Of course, if I want to be in the middle of people and I want to learn more about your cultural way, your tradition, I would want to learn your language. So when we go to these exchange programs, we get to know different languages. We get to know people talking to us in different ways, and I also want to interact in a language. And for instance, when I went to Czech Republic, I wanted to learn Czech. So when someone saying, ahoy, hi, it's actually one of the good ways for me to feel that, okay, I'm welcomed in this country, and I might be welcome elsewhere in the country. I will also say networking. Through networking, this is where we get to engage with other students from around the world, and not only with Africans to Europe, but globally, from European students to Namibia, from Canadian students to Asia, like that. So many a times when we engage in this networking problems, this is where we get to ask our fellow students that, okay, tell us, how are your youth people, how are they going around with finances and employment in your country? And when we ask ourselves, they will be like, okay, for youth people to be financially independent from their government, this is some sort of skills you should have, this is some sort of projects you should have. So through this network, we engage and we get this knowledge that we come back to our countries and try to talk to other fellow students in society. Then as development goes on, that is how it goes. Also through employment, when we go there, we learn to see different behavior, people who are interacting with us in different ways, different approaches to ideas. We get to give our own opinions and critical thinking skills. We get to get this from people when we engage with them. And when we acquire this as students, we come back home, we apply in our CVs, we try to go back and tell other students that, okay, having this and this and this might help you out to apply in this so that you can acquire what you would want to have. Sort of that, yes, we have, these are the advantages, but of course we have challenges that comes that are associated with this. So with this exchange student, there's some sort of a creation, an automatic financial bias. And it's not that people created, it's how things are, the system that created it. So this is the problem, that students are selected, yes. Then suddenly Now there comes problem. How are you going to fund yourself to actually get this visa processes, this transport and ways like this? We have no problem with those ones that get the money and get things up. But then comes a problem when those who are financially disadvantaged from the backgrounds, that some other students are unable to be helped by the family, they end up to say, no, I'm actually not applying because I have nowhere to get the money for me to apply. So again, it's just a suggestion to say that universities, the sending and the receiving universities should collaborate more to find ways on how to include every student in this, just to keep the ambition of what we want to have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really important points. Thank you for sharing. So, as I've had the pleasure to speak with you all, let me turn to the other side of the panel. Dr. Errol Nomap, you're the Advanced Chancellor of NUST here in Namibia. So we all know that the role of higher education in driving socioeconomic growth is fundamental. So I wanted to bring in this perspective of university linkage with the private sector. So can I ask you, how does your university develop these linkages between university, private sector, also in the frame of Africa-EU cooperation? I know that you're working, for example, on the field of renewable energy, but not only. So could you tell us a bit what you see as major gains from this?
Right. Thank you so much, Anna, for this opportunity. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps before I delve into how, as a university, we are setting ourselves up to engage with the industry, I think it is important to first establish why that is necessary. And I will attempt to answer that question contextually to what is happening in our country. Namibia is considered and ranked an upper middle income country. The consequence of that is that we, from our national imperatives, are looking towards becoming an industrialized nation. The urgency is there, given that we are now in the 5th development plan. We're going for the 6th development plan for our Vision 2030. It means that the nature of engagement between the university and the industry is changing. And it's predicated on the value that the industry would like to have with engagement to the university. It's no longer a question of corporate social responsibility. It's a question of generating value that will scale the business propositions within the industry. So because of that, we had to do university, as a university, we have to reassess the changes in the labor market so that we are able to be in sync and in tune with what the market desires. But of course, it becomes complex when one looks at the implication of the 4th Industrial Revolution and the changes in the labor market and how we have to create what is now called future smart industries. The future smart industries is predicated on the front-line technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, to inform our production systems. But also, the industry is particularly concerned about the current workforce and the need to migrate that workforce to a future smart industry workforce. So as a university, we've purposefully set up several programs that speaks to that narrative. And I will share with you at least 3 or 4 of the programs that we've developed, and we've been reasonably successful in the implementation of those programs. 2 of the programs I think is common to many universities and cuts across universities, and that is what we call the work integrated learning, which simply means that we give the students an ability to apply their knowledge in a specified workplace. It allows them to become more rounded, and also it gives them an opportunity to gain certain skills that the industry would like to see. This is where we're talking about graduate attributes that are in sync with the market. The other program that we have, which is a very successful program at the university, is what we call industry advisory boards for specific sectors of learning or fields of learning. The industry advisory boards are embedded in all of our academic programs. So each and every academic program has an industry advisory board that allows the exchange, bi-directional exchange of know-how. That simply means that the advisory boards source knowledge within the industry to assist with teaching, learning, and research, and also the other way around, so it becomes bi-directional. But what is very unique to our university is that we've gone an extra mile to close the gap between the industry and the university. And we've done so purposefully because we've realized that if we look at Namibia's tech industry and where it is within the greater continental rankings, Namibia is ranked, according to the recent Financial Times, it's ranked 8th in Africa in terms of our tech ecosystem, which simply means that that's a substantial advantage to Namibia. So what we have done as a university, we've done market analysis, we've done a soundboarding to see to what extent can we as a university create a tech ecosystem for Namibia, for Africa in Namibia. This tech ecosystem, we call it an investment-ready tech ecosystem. And what we have done is we've simply purposefully created a physical infrastructure, and on the university we have a 6-story building, brand new. And with this 6-story building, we've simply said we're breaking down the boundaries and the silos that usually exist between the universities and the industry. And what has happened as a consequence of that is that the industry has physically moved into this building. As we speak, we have collaborations not only within the tech industry in Namibia, but we have companies from as far as Europe, the Americas, within critical areas of green economy, as well as I have mentioned, the issue of digitalization. And the benefits thereof has been that the industry, given that they are sitting in the physical space together with the university, are able to provide investment into critical projects. As we speak, the tech ecosystem at the national level already has had value of more than 100 million Namibian dollars of investment only from the industry. But also what it has unlocked as a value is an opportunity for this tech ecosystem now to connect with Africa and the world. And one of the things that has recently happened is that we've been able to connect with what is called the Co-Creation Hub, Africa Co-Creation Hub, which is one of the largest co-creation hubs on the continent. It is present in several African countries. Because of the way we've set ourselves up as a university to say we're breaking down the boundaries, the Co-Creation Hub has also opened their doors in Namibia. The other issue is because of our consciousness as a university to say we believe in our students and we believe in the talent and quality of the young Africans in Namibia, we've decided to test that. And we've said, what if we can test how talented our students are at the global stage? So what we have done is we've connected our tech ecosystem to what is known as the Demola Global Tech Ecosystem. What it simply means is that our students are now sitting in teams with other universities from across the world and are able to work on challenges that are global-related challenges. These are market-related challenges. These are mega trends, mega projects that the students are working on. And we are simply basing that on a notion that we don't undermine the quality of our students. We feel that our students are ready to test themselves at that level. And so far, we've seen the value of that. Our students have been working on very wonderful projects with universities across the world, London, Helsinki, Frankfurt, from China, etc. And the feedback that we are getting from the students is not only about academic feedback, it is really that our students are becoming global citizens. So the benefits of having such a technical system for us has been great. I will stop there.
Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor. It's a really important dimension also how to have university cooperations expanding and having business relationships and making sure that, for example, also learning mobility opportunities are sort of demand-driven, that there's opportunity that could come afterwards from the labor market. So thank you for bringing that. Let me turn to Ms. Miriam Shiyaba, former CEO of the Zambia Qualifications Authority and involved in the African Continental Qualifications Framework. And you're the panelist here who may bring in also the dimension of TVET and lifelong learning. So I wanted to ask you, so what is, first of all, the purpose of African Continental Qualifications Framework? And how could this implementation of this framework foster the objectives of mobility for Africa, as we've been talking about today?
Okay, thanks, Anna, and good afternoon, colleagues. Just speaking on the Africa Continental Qualifications Framework, which is the ACQF initiatives, just to realize that this is an AU initiative which basically started way out in their first implementation plan of action from 2063. So this was in the first plan for 2014 to 2023, and it builds on the protocol of the treaty for establishing the African Economic Community relating to free movement of persons, the right of residence, and the right of establishment. And basically, this is the AU Free Movement Protocol that basically governs everyone. It also is built on the Continental Education Strategy for Africa with the CESA, year 2016 to 2025, which explicitly includes the issue of the qualifications framework for Africa among their goals. And with the coming on of this, we're looking at the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is in the protocol for trade in services. And so you realize that mobility of learners, mobility of teachers, and so on, is a trade in service. They'll be moving from one country to the other or continental. And this sets the framework for mutual recognition of education. So the objectives of the ACQF are envisioned to basically be looking at transparency and mutual trust in issues of qualifications and support for people with respect to lifelong learning. It also facilitates the recognition of diplomas and certificates and supporting mobility for learners and workers in the service of academia and so on. The work is in cooperation and complementarity with national qualifications frameworks and regional qualifications frameworks, and it supports the creation of an African education and qualifications space. So basically, until now, most of our countries, all of our countries have basically been looking inwards. They've been just looking at their own independent qualifications systems or their education system. So what the ACQF is doing is basically bringing together what is happening in the individual countries and bringing it on the qualification space at the AU level. So member states basically are encouraged to cooperate in that space. So it promotes cooperation, referencing between qualifications frameworks or education systems at the national and regional level. You'll be aware that, for instance, SADC has a SADC qualifications framework, and East Africa has one. So it brings that cooperation in Africa and worldwide. And the ACQF development is supported by the Skills for Youth Employability Program, which is a contribution for skills initiative for Africa. So basically this is looking at skills not only for, basically looking at skills for initiatives for Africa. And the skills and qualifications of the people in Africa are crucial for the transformation of the continent. And this is how then partnering with Youth Mobility for Africa is very key to the aspects of ensuring youth mobility. So skills and qualifications are strategic in the context of the demographic bulge of the continent, like Professor Oleoye said, that really the African continent is really the repository for the youth, in the world. This is where you get a lot of a youthful population. And so the purpose of the ACQF is to enhance transparency of qualifications and mutual trust. You have to trust another person's qualification system. So if Namibia does not trust the Zambian qualification system, then no Zambian is going to enter this space. And so basically this promotes issues of trust, because then you have to be transparent with what your qualification system has. And basically as a region, and then building that as a continent. And obviously this speaks to bigger things like the Addis Ababa Convention on the Recognition of Qualifications. You're also talking about the Global Convention on the Recognition of Qualifications, specifically concerning higher education. So this whole initiative is also there to enhance lifelong learning. And it is being done basically by supporting the development and implementation of national qualifications frameworks in the different countries that are interested. And we've seen in the qualifications space that we have about 7 countries with developed NQFs, and those are supporting basically others with experiential learning, and also they are also reviewing their own qualifications frameworks just to ensure that qualifications that are offered are meeting the requirements of the users. Beyond that, we have seen that there are new qualifications frameworks that are being developed because of the need to trade in services at the AAU level. So this also then brings together referencing and comparisons of NQFs, because part of the documentation that's been done by the ACQF is to develop reference tools, to develop basically a framework where the different nations can reference and recognize each other's qualifications. So it's a qualifications platform that supports information sharing for all types of users. And also, in doing that, it recognizes that you definitely have different ways of learning, but one of the key aspects that it also promotes is recognition of prior learning to boost access to further learning and qualifications for all persons, including those that have skills. So basically, when you're talking about TVET and so on, there's a lot of promotion for the skills that is held there, and there's motivation to progress, because skills that are non-formal aims will then be recognized through that platform. It also promotes the development of common profiles of qualifications, and from there you have a pool where you can tap for priority sectors for Africa, for integration and emerging skills, and it embraces contemporary questions. So we do have emerging issues that are coming into our space. Instead of us having our 3-year programs, 4-year programs, now we have micro-credentials. How are we dealing with that? So all these are some of the issues that the ACQF basically looks at. And with the micro-credentials, you're looking at digital credentials as well. So this package will support mainly the developments at national and regional level, but it does not in any way take over the role of the national framework. It just supports and ensures that your system is now able to give credible information. You did see that some of the presentations we saw from yesterday today, we have data that is missing in some of our African systems. And so basically this platform will now ensure that whoever is managing qualifications in their space or quality assurance system is able to populate what they have, to document the kinds of qualifications they have, so that when a youth or whoever is trying to move from one space, from within the continent or outside, they have the information. Part of the problems that we've had on recognition of qualifications is that there's no information. So if I'm trying to get information on a university in Nigeria, I should know where to go, where to get it, and what kind of information I should be able to get. 5 years before this, when we started the Qualifications Authority in 2015, the Zambia Qualifications Authority, we didn't have a lot of information sitting out there. But with time, with the developments that have happened at AAU level, UNESCO level, we've seen that information on which universities exist in South Africa is now available. What kind of qualifications? Like that, then you build trust. And because of that, then you have transparency. Then it means that somebody within Africa trying to move from Congo DRC is able to actually move and can be recognized. So it means there's now increased recognition of qualifications. Somebody can move from Mozambique and come to Zambia or go to Europe because the European university is able now to access information about Mozambican universities, the types of qualifications they have, and so on. So basically, the work that is going on at AU level through the ACQF and other initiatives is aimed to improve youth mobility by ensuring that there's a trust system, there's transparency with our qualifications, and we can then enhance recognition of qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shiaba. I think it's a very important dimension, and thanks for also bringing in really what is the impact for the individual, the worker, the student who needs his or her qualifications recognized to be able to move cross-border and to benefit from moving across the continent. Ms. Elizabeth Colucci at Obriel Global, coordinator for HAQUA. So we will hear a bit later about the HAQUA initiative and its results in your presentation later, but could you tell us broadly what you see as the main gains from harmonized quality assurance and accreditation systems, and in higher education, of course, and what is needed to move forward with that on the continent?
Sure, thank you so much for the kind invitation. I think this is a very interesting panel today because we have voices from different sectors, we have voices from universities, we have voices from qualifications authorities, we have voices from Europe and from the EU. And I think all of those voices are part and parcel to this youth mobility flagship, which is sort of the meta theme of this panel. And we're exploring that flagship through some of its different dimensions. That flagship, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the partners that I represent in this consortium that carries forward the HAQUA initiative that you mentioned, which again I'll have an opportunity to present to you in more in depth later, is that harmonization is really the backbone of it all. And I think Miriam already elaborated very clearly. It's about how our different systems talk to each other, how our different systems collaborate, and how we open the doors for students and for academics to eventually be mobile, to study across borders, and to study in a system that has a certain guarantee of its quality and relevance. And I think that's really where HAQUA comes in, and that's why we start talking about harmonization of quality assurance systems and also harmonization of accreditation. I think it's very important to break down the word harmonization. This is a complex word. This is understood sometimes differently in different parts of the world. I think there is, to a large extent, a consensus now in Africa, in many circles, on what harmonization should mean. We see it appearing in all the major policy documents, that of the African Union towards their continental education strategy for Africa, that of some of the regional economic communities, and I take, for example, the East African higher education space, the strategic plan of the AAU. So I think harmonization is a term that has gained a common acceptance as being essential for the development of our higher education sectors, though sometimes we still fail to understand that when we say harmonization, it doesn't mean we should take away from the rich diversity of higher education systems or the rich diversity of higher education institutions on this continent. On the contrary, we want to respect that diversity, but give these systems and institutions the tools to talk better to each other with a common language. And when I say with a common language, it's not French, or it's not English, and it's not even Swahili. It is a common language for quality and common standards for quality. And that definition can change. We've gone through a pandemic context. We've learned that how we assess and evaluate and accredit our higher education programs and institutions is a moving target, but we must work together to create that common language around the standards by which we accredit and we evaluate. And the idea is that if we do that, it will again open the doors towards more exchange, more collaboration, more mobility, trust, as Miriam has mentioned, which are all a big piece of the puzzle. I should also say that harmonization is essential if we're going to achieve the wider regional integration objectives. One could reference the political commitment towards the African free trade area. There are, if you look at any number of regions in the world, and the HACWA initiative has done a nice comparative study of regional integration processes for the higher education sector, we see that integration and harmonization is essential to achieve wider goals, whether they be economic or whether they be related to peace and security. And of course, Africa has its own goals, just like in Europe. We also have our own goals, and we believe that under the umbrella of this very interesting and attractive cooperation package that the European Union provides us with, we can collaborate around those concepts of harmonization, quality assurance, accreditation, qualification frameworks, mobility, recognition, all of these tools that are part of the harmonization agenda in one way or another for Africa, for Europe, for Southeast Asia, for many parts of the world. You asked the question about how can we move it forward. And I think, we are moving it forward. And again, I'll have an opportunity to show you in more detail what we're able to do and to fund under the HACWA initiative. But I think it can't just be about one initiative. It can't just be about the European Union generously offering to support mobility within Africa. It really has to come from the bottom up. It can have top-down incentives, but it needs to come from the institutions, and that's why I think this audience here today is so key, and I congratulate the AAU for fitting this panel into its very dense agenda, because I think a message to the Vice-Chancellors is that we need the Vice-Chancellors to get on board with the importance of harmonization on the African level, but not just for Africa, also because of the wider recognition and relevance internationally of African higher education. And so, of course, this institutional buy-in, this university buy-in, if you will, is critical. And I take advantage of the fact that we have a student on the panel to also say that it must go even deeper in the higher education institutions. It must also come from the students. And I think it's very interesting that the EU now has supported student ambassadors and African student forum, which will bring together students that have been on study abroad programs, students that have not just studied in Europe, but have studied in other African countries, because we need that student voice to champion this agenda, to put pressure on their institutions, on their university leadership, that they need these opportunities, and they can only have these opportunities if we have the tools in place for them to have their studies recognized, for the labor market to see how valuable it was that they've gone to the Czech Republic, or that they've gone to Nigeria, or that they've gone to Namibia. So I think that's really what the harmonization agenda needs. I think that in certain political circles and for certain advocates of harmonization, we're convinced. But it must go much deeper at the level of the universities, and it must also reach much deeper to the level of the students.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and also for connecting the dots between the different programs, the different initiatives, and these just all join under the one agenda in a way of increasing mobility for youth, for researchers, for students. Prof. Nelson Odumi, going to you, and you're the director of the Institute for Water Research at George University, and you're also the coordinator of an intra-Africa academic mobility scheme project. So this is also a scheme that the EU is collaborating with African countries on, and your project, if I say it right, is working on it's called the African Water Resource Mobility Network, right? So I'd like to hear from you, from your experience as a coordinator of this project that has been considered as an example of best practices. What are the ingredients, would you say, for a successful intra-Africa mobility project, and how can it be scaled up and also include more universities and maybe new universities?
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a very important occasion because you don't really have a lot of opportunity to speak to vice chancellors, rectors, and presidents of African universities. And I must say that when I was coming in for the first time, I was treated like a diplomat. And I'm sure it's because of the high level of the conference. So thank you to the organizers and my Namibian fellows. Just to come back to the question, so this is an intra-African mobility project, which in a way is similar to the Erasmus program in Europe, which Professor Oyewole was alluding to earlier. So in a way, I can say that we have an equivalent of that now in Africa, seeking to promote intra-African mobility, exchange of staff and students on the continent. And the particular project that I'm going to be drawing my experience on is African Water Resources Mobility Network, which is set up to address some of the complex challenges around the issues of water, access to water, governance of water, quality and all of that. And we are in partnership with the University of Kinshasa in DRC. As you know, the Democratic Republic of Congo hosts one of, if not the largest basin on the continent and one of the largest in the world in terms of the River Congo. And then Makerere in Uganda, Federal University of Technology in Nigeria, as well as the Higher School of Hydraulics in Algeria. And at the moment, we have supported nearly 35 exchanges of staff and students drawn from about 15 African countries. So I'm going to be drawing my experience on that. In terms of the ingredient of what best practice might be and how this can be promoted, I will speak one at the institutional level, secondly at the consortium level, and then at the national level. So I will take it that way. At the institutional level, my message is really mostly directed to the vice chancellors who are seated here. The importance of an agile and efficient grant management system cannot be underestimated. And what I meant by that, I know that a lot of universities have system of managing large grants, and we're talking about a grant of about 1.4 million euro, for example. But this system must be set up in such a way that they are agile. They respond to the requirement of the project, and the bureaucracy of grant management has to be reduced so that when reports are due, for example, you are able to pull out the financial information of the project and submit it to the funders. So I want to appeal to the vice chancellors here that we really have to look into how our grant management systems in our various universities are set up and the agility within them and the efficiency. And that is linked to the fact that there has to be a recognition that the administrative capability of the university, the administrative side of the university is set up explicitly for the academic project. It can't be that the administrative side stand as a barrier to the academic project. And what I mean by this is that within the university, those who are sitting, for example, in the research finance, the international office, contract and legal, must see to it that a particular project succeed and that the project is set up so that what they do in the administrative sector is really about making sure that such projects actually succeed and not becoming a bureaucratic barrier for the implementation of this project. So the administrative support has to be there. And then project ownership. Most of the time, it is important that the project is anchored at the appropriate level within the institution. So if I draw on my personal experience, for example, our project, for example, the Vice Chancellor of the university is very, very much aware of it. He sits in the office of the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, and I report to him, and he consults every now and then about how the project is going. And this is critical because within the university system, you will always have challenges and barriers. And then you can draw on the Vice Chancellor's office or the Deputy Vice Chancellor's office to really address those problems within the university because it's coming from a higher authority and the administrators will then key in. So anchoring the project ownership at appropriate level, and this is a call for the Vice Chancellors, especially when we are implementing large grant projects. Linked to that is the need for university to foster close collaboration between the university and the national government. And this is important because, especially in intra-Africa, fortunately, when I will speak to some of the challenges, Africa is still not open to Africans. If I were to be a European, I would probably be able to visit 90% of Africa without a visa. But being Africa, it is almost impossible for me, and holding a Nigerian passport, for example, to visit probably less than 10% of countries in Africa. Apart from West Africa countries, I'm not sure if I'm able to move freely. So the collaboration between the institution and the national government will mean that when you have challenges like this, the Office of the Vice Chancellor can actually write to the Home Affairs, Department of Home Affairs, and the Ministry of Higher Education to try and address specific challenges. And the reason why this is important is, for example, when we launched our project, the ministers were there. We invited the ministers because we wanted to anchor the project at a national level. And the Minister of Science and Technology is very much aware of the project, and we can actually access his office through the Vice Chancellor's office to unlock some of the challenges. So then at a consortium level, there has to be very good agreement between the various partners. And this agreement must spell out how the dispute will be resolved, as well as the benefit and sharing of risk. So it can't be that one university is carrying a lot of the risk and others are just there to benefit. So equitable sharing of benefits and risk and ability to leverage other resources. Scale up? I'm just watching the time. Okay. So in terms of how do we scale up some of these, one is strategic partnership between African universities. So one of the pillars would be that in the pillars of the various universities, we really have to look very critically into intra-Africa partnership as a strategic research pillar. And what that will mean is setting up various collaborative agreement and consortium agreement and MOU so that students can move freely between the partner university, and a system of inter-institutional recognition of credit and learning experience, as well as exchange of ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those very hands-on tips I think many can benefit from. So before we open the floor for comments and questions from the audience, I just wanted to give the opportunity to the panel if anyone wants to come back on any of the points that were raised by another speaker. Please, Prof. Olusola, will you pass him the mic, please? Yeah.
Since the session started in the morning, there are two quotes that have been made which got my attention. The first one says, "Sleeping on the mats of others is like sleeping on the ground." And the second quotation says, the country that allows its university to decline opts out of development. And I want us to be challenged by these two quotes that I've made to decide that we need to do something for our institutions. We've been talking about promoting mobility within Africa. And for our youth to be mobile within Africa, there must be partnership. And in the wise, I want to appeal to our vice chancellors. Please, don't leave this conference without connecting your university to another university in Africa. You can do that easily since vice chancellors from other universities are present within this room where we are. Please let us promote intra-African partnership within ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's take 2 questions and then answers, and then we can take more questions. So can someone help with giving the microphone to the gentleman here in the front?
Thanks to all members of the panel. Special thanks to Professor Olushola Oyewole, who does not want us to sleep on the ground, because we shouldn't sleep on someone else's mat. And I'll come to that in a minute. I'd like to congratulate Elizabeth Colucci for the Yo Person's job that Obre Global did in HAQUA 2. We're looking forward to AAU and Obre Global, DAD, and other partners in delivering on HAQUA 3. Now, I support your request, Professor Oyewole, to our vice chancellors that they should take steps towards, you see, we have this as youth mobility for Africa, to take steps towards getting the youth, our undergraduates or even postgraduates from an African university, go to another African university for either joint degrees or just simple exchange of students, exchange of staff. I like to let you know, sir, that the baby steps on this track have been taken. 12 years ago, actually 11 years ago, on the 10th of March, 2012, Professor Ishaq Oloyede mobilized, is he here? Ah, he's here. No, I thought I was looking for you here. He mobilized universities all over Africa, 6 of them. And they were labeled U6. It was a consortium of universities from Nigeria, from Ghana, from the Gambia, South Africa, everywhere. And what Professor Ishaq Oloyede and the team did was to foster collaboration among students, exchange of students. I recall, sir, Professor Oloyede, that students from Cape Coast came to the University of Ilorin, stayed there. The staff also did the same. And if you look at the literature over that period, you will see co-authored journal articles and books by that group. Let me see the universities are Cape Peninsula University of Technology, South Africa, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology in Kenya, Kwara State University, the University of the Gambia, University of Cape Coast, and University of Ilorin. So what we must do, sir, is for you to buy engine oil. The oiling of that machinery is weak. So, Baba, give us some money to buy engine oil, so that we will oil that system. But more importantly, is for the expansion of that kind of collaboration. I walked to the back there, and I spoke with actually Professor Isaac Itodo, the Vice Chancellor of one of our leading universities in agriculture. He said he was going to take up a challenge. That, well, when he gets back, he will explore the possibility, and very actively too, for that joint degree system. So many of them, in fact, the chair of the vice chancellors in Nigeria, who is here, Professor Salami, I was just speaking with her. I said, Madam, look at the VC of University of Ghana, who was speaking to us when we did that launch. I mean, it's possible for her to link up with that vice chancellor, woman-to-woman collaboration, and then get, yeah, you know, so they can see how we have exchange. It may not be on a large scale for a start. It could be just one program that they will take on. And the Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Technology, Akure, Professor Oladiji, was the coordinator of what Professor Oloyede started in Ilori. We had exchange of students from Nigeria to Ghana for industrial attachment. So rather than take our students to do sideways or seaways, as they call it, in Nigeria, took them to Ghana. And it profited them tremendously. The long and short of my story, sir, is that I joined you, I queue behind you in getting our vice chancellors. I think tomorrow during lunch, we'll lock them up somewhere for them to just exchange cards and then, yeah, possible enrollment. So thank you, sir, for that suggestion. I'm sure it's going to happen. Oh, yeah. And you also have Professor Yakubu Chefu here, who is our Secretary General. They're all here, and they can make it happen. So, Madam, let it happen.
Distinguished panelists, thank you very much, and our own dear Secretary General. So, I don't think the problem here is collaboration. We will do that. But I came back from Brazil some few months ago, where we took about 40 of our students, and they're doing programs there. Now, I cornered one or two of them, and I said to them, would you return back after this program? And they said to me, loud and clear, Madam, we are not coming back. And so I turned back to the organizers, and I said, we have a problem here. And here we are seated, all so many eggheads. What do we do with our youths exiting, emigrating, and not wanting to come back? So here we invest time, resources, and they don't return back. So it's a major, major problem, and I think we need to address this so that at least these collaborations can be seamless, and then you know that when they come back, they come to empower and bring value to your own system. So I think it's something that we need to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you for those interventions. We just take the gentleman there in the, a few rows down, and then we'll take the answers and we can come back to the audience after.
Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm Professor Atanga from Kesmont International University, the leading digital university we have in the continent of Africa. I'd like to address some issues that particularly concerns my expertise, which is quality assurance in higher education, credentials recognition, and cross-border movement. If you realize in African states, most universities are only recognized by the ministries of education. They have closed their eyes to other international accreditations recognized and authorized by governments and states. Therefore, some students studying with private universities, especially the private sector, they have the challenge of having their credentials recognized because the people in the ministries of education have no ideas about international accreditation. They have no idea about quality assurance. I doubt if there are people here who know about the Council of Higher Education Accreditation. I doubt if there are people here who know about the Accreditation Council of Independent Schools and Colleges. I doubt if there are people who know about the British Accreditation Council. I doubt if there are people who know about the Quality Assurance Network for Higher Education in Africa. People do not know about these accrediting bodies, and their quality assurance agencies recognized. Yet, when students graduate from universities accredited by these bodies, when they go back to their countries, they do not get equivalence. I also want to appreciate the Zambian Qualification Authority for the swift response they give my students, because I think they have knowledge on international accreditation. Another issue on immigration challenges. I was in Nairobi a few weeks back, and I had a meeting in Kampala, and they are asking me to go to Cameroon and pick a visa. You look at the challenges that have been put between us probably because they look at the opportunities that if we become one, we might become bigger than the people who don't want us to be united. So I will plead with the authorities concerned to address this issue of mobility within Africa. It is a very big challenge. And concerning the issue my senior professor has mentioned about students graduating and not wanting to coming back, I think we should look back at our countries and the opportunities. When there is a civil engineering project, we train civil engineers in our university, but we contact Chinese for the contracts. Why will you want them to come back and build what? So we should be able to give opportunities to the students we train, and we should provide facilities for them to test the skills they have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those interventions. Let me turn back to the panelists. Someone feeling encouraged to respond? Yeah, I'll give it. Miriam, please start. Thank you.
I can just react to one from VC who has just spoken on the issue of recognition of qualifications. I think this is an area that clearly needs a lot of working together with the universities, the quality assurance agencies, and obviously the qualifications bodies, the recognition bodies, because clearly there must be parameters that are used for one to make a recognition call. Yes, by a few universities coming together and associating and then deciding that they are a quality assurance agency, that does not make them a quality or a verification agency. There are certain steps. Obviously, there's recognition within the government, within the institute, within the country where they are associating. They have to meet some requirements in line with the quality assurance requirements for one to operate a university. So you cannot say when we have international accreditation bodies, then they're automatically recognized because they have recognized. No. We know that in education, qualifications are thriving. Qualifications, if you put your paper out there, somebody wants to snatch it. But the question is it a good paper? Everybody here, the vice chancellors in here, the rectors, their interest is protecting the authenticity of their qualification. So if we are not careful by opening up recognition agencies or accreditation bodies to anyone, we're going to have a lot of what we call diploma mills running around and awarding qualifications, awarding our own qualifications out there. And we are going to have a lot of our students getting fraudulent qualifications. Some of them, they're not learners actually. So we're going to have our qualifications questions. So what happens is Nigeria may not be the one producing those certificates, but because they are getting the fraudulent qualifications purported to have been awarded from an institution from Nigeria, now Nigeria is labeled. Same will happen for Zambia. So yes, much as we appreciate having been in the qualifications recognition space, much as it is appreciated that we will have international accreditation bodies, there's parameters that they have to meet for recognition, so that even if it is the Ministry of Education, believe me, the Ministry of Education has technocrats, yes, but they are aware of the different accreditation agencies. We do have, from the different from the different regional bodies, we do have networks. We have networks at AAU level, SADC level, East Africa level, West Africa level, where we come together as recognition experts and as credential evaluators. We are able to share information. There are networks that exist. So when a recognition certificate is not given, definitely it means some information has not been given. So let's trust those that we have given the responsibility to do that. But where there's capacity gaps, let's enhance that by sharing information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And actually, I would build upon that, and thank you for the comments, which I find extremely relevant. And it has to do with who does the accrediting, and do we trust those accreditors, and are those accreditors recognized between different countries, but also towards the labor market and in the eyes of the student. There's been a tremendous amount of work that's been done over the past, let's say, 7 years of the HAQUA initiative in its first and second phases to support not only the development of national quality assurance systems in agencies where they do not yet exist in Africa, and many countries do not yet have them, or they have them and they're very new and they need a lot of capacitation and a lot of support. We've not only supported the development of those systems to take charge of their own quality assurance and accreditation agenda in their own respective countries, but we've tried to help those systems base their national accreditation agencies and standards and guidelines for accreditation and quality assurance on universally accepted African standards and guidelines for quality assurance. This is a document that exists. It's being promoted extensively across the continent. It was developed by Africans under the HAQUA initiative. It was informed by international standards and guidelines. It was informed by standards and guidelines that already exist at the level of the regions or the communities, such as in East Africa or in the CAMES space, for example. And it's an extremely useful document because it defines quality and quality standards for Africa, not quality standards based on an international accreditor that comes from somewhere else, who may be very valid, but comes with a different motivation and potentially an economic motivation in mind. And so I think that's important to take into account. Secondarily, when we create the development, when we create and support the development of national quality assurance agencies and systems, we have to make sure that they are not then closing themselves off. Because I think the point is that we've done a lot of work, for example, in Europe, to break down the barriers of certain regulatory bodies, certain national quality assurance agencies, help them to communicate amongst each other, help them to recognize each other's decisions. We wouldn't want to duplicate that experience of creating barriers in Africa or anywhere else in the world. So I think as we build national QA systems in Africa, the need to connect them, to link them, to open them towards the recognition of other accreditation decisions of potentially their neighbors, and also to apply certain standards and guidelines that are conceived at an African level and internationally recognized are very important.
Thank you.
Just to add that since we are talking about recognition of certificates and diploma, I wonder how many of us know about Addis Convention 2014. UNESCO is here now. Please, that is a convention for the recognition of certificates, diplomas, and degrees across African countries. As of today, I'm not sure if we've got more than 16 countries that have appended their signature to that document. Please, let us speak to our ministers of education that it's necessary that countries should sign this document. And when they sign it, it will be easy for us to recognize certificates and their equivalencies across various countries. I also want to let you know that through the Aqua 2 initiative, we are about to set up what is called PAQUAP, Pan-African Accreditation and Quality Assurance Agency. It's most likely that we are starting this organization with a unit in AAU that will lead to the eventual location of that. Please, when we start, we will need your support. And for universities that are here, we are going to launch Aqua 3 tomorrow. One of the components of Aqua 3 project is what we call African Credit Transfer Scheme, ACTS. AAU is leading this with Obre Global. We will need to consult with universities across countries. What is the meaning of a credit course in your country? We want to understand what you mean by 1 credit, 2 credits, 3 credits. It is the lack of understanding of what credit is within Africa that has made mobility to be difficult. We've started Aqua 3. in May, but we are launching it in this conference tomorrow. Please, universities, we will get you involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think because we started a bit late, I think the organizers will allow us a few more minutes, so let's take 2 more questions. Yeah, sure. There, sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Abdullah Salifo. I'm from UNESCO. First of all, I want to thank all the panelists for their contribution. For UNESCO perspective, I want to recall that we fully engage in the empowerment of youth through technical higher education. And we think that in order to avoid the mismatch between the needs of the market and the training offered for university, we need to reinforce the technical higher education. Now, concerning the harmonization of quality assurance, so on, we have 2 strong tools, particularly this convention that has been ratified by 14 countries around Africa. We put in place what we call the implementation structure for the implementation of this convention, particularly the information center on the recognition of qualification. And the second point is this global convention. Right now, as I'm talking, they are having a very important meeting in Paris where we set in place the committee of the global convention. Let's inform you that the global convention of UNESCO on the recognition of the qualification concerning higher education. As at this convention, we have already the committee. Now we will put in place this new committee composed of the various countries and state members that ratify the convention. As of today, we have only 4 countries that ratify the global convention out of 23, mainly Tunisia, Côte d'Ivoire, Cape Verde, and Guinea-Conakry. And finally, let's say that both at this convention and the global convention are in the framework of long life learning, including Africa Continental Qualification Framework, African Continental Qualification Framework. For us, this is very important to put emphasis on the recognition of prior learning, on the recognition of, let's say, qualification outside university. So they are very important, as well as the recognition of micro-credential. So please, as the SG AAU said, I applaud for the both ratification of this convention and the global convention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a question here, I think on the 3rd row. Something.
Thank you very much, panelists. Congratulations for this panel. I think there has been lots of information that has been shared. I am Dinesh Swarup from the University of Mauritius. I'm the Pro-Vice Chancellor. I would like to bounce back on the idea that was put forward on the Erasmus, specifically for Africa having joint degree. I know that we have the Africa intra-mobility, but this has been predominantly for researchers to move around. I'm not sure how many programs, whether undergraduate or postgraduate, we have developed under this program. If there are some, there are not many, and it is not properly advertised. So my suggestion for the EU is, next time we have the intra-mobility, perhaps we can have a clause to give an opening for universities who are mounting joint programs to tap in fund for them. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think we'll stop there because of time. Sorry about that. And Ms. Kosia, do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you very much. And I'm speaking under actually control of Anna, and she might complete the point. But under Erasmus Plus, there is indeed the mobility from Africa to European Union and from European Union to Africa, both at the level of undergrad and postgrad university levels, as well as for the academic staff. Since last year, all of the countries were invited to appoint a focal point for Erasmus Plus, mainly through the ministries of higher education, and a lot of advertising and actually information about it should be also going through these focal points. Of course, there are some of the universities, such as here in Namibia, NAST and UNAM, who have an established record of cooperation with the European universities under Erasmus or previous schemes. But in order to bring more and new partnerships, the role of the focal points is fundamental, actually. So we do publish it on global EU level and then in the national level. There are calls every year. So we would also invite you to spread the news. Will I go further, or there will be some points from the panel still? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
If I can add something just on the EU programs in mobility. So, just like Gosha said, we'll have national Erasmus focal points in many sub-Saharan African countries. I mean, African as a whole, actually. And there is also the Intra-Africa Academic Mobility Scheme, where we have opportunities for master's students, PhD students, trainees also, and university staff. So we're also having these opportunities for trainees. Okay, you have to be registered in a university, but still it's also these kind of going to work for a business, for example, for a short amount of time. So I just wanted to highlight that as well.
I just wanted to add to the Intra-Africa, which you've already highlighted, to just say that it's focused masters and PhD staff, but the emphasis here that I want to put out is both academic and administrative staff are qualified on mobility, and our experience is that the administrative staff usually do not go on mobility, and yet they are very critical to the success of this kind of project.
Thank you. Yes, if you could pass the microphone, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to react to the issue of collaboration. I do agree that in the from a continental perspective, I don't think collaboration is the problem. I think the problem is how we give meaning to the term excellence in higher education. If one looks at that, if we are at the point where we give meaning to excellence in higher education, then why do we continuously realize capital flight from Africa? Does a capital flight involve value, in financial value, as well as human capital? We need to rethink how we think about mobility within the continent. And when we talk about youth mobility, it is not sufficient from the perspective of sustainability that we have only projects. We need to think about sustainability beyond the projects. For us, for example, at NAST, we are very successful in participating in projects, EU projects. In fact, we're so successful that EU has immortalized that relationship by putting up a monument at our university. As we speak, we've got projects that are about 20 or 30 projects, the value of close to maybe 20 million euros. But it's not enough. We need to think about what is the next stage of that. And this is where we are talking about building not only academic to academic relations between our countries and the European Union. We need to think about business to academia relationships. We need to think about business to business relationships and build an ecosystem around that that will unlock the potential for our young people. That's how we will begin to prevent the capital flight out of Africa. So we had to have the outcome in mind when we talk about youth mobility. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really important points to underline. I see that we are running out of time, but I just really want to give a last word to Ms. Lenekela next to me, because as we can hear in the name of this flagship, youth inclusion, youth leadership is an important part of it. And I know that students and youth organizations, they have a lot to contribute. So I just wanted to hear shortly from you, how does these youth organizations, students organizations, how can they contribute to increasing youth mobility opportunities, improving the quality of them? So what can we take away from that? Thank you.
Shortly, I would say perhaps these youth organizations may provide ideas and advice to the higher education management to actually bring up this communication between youth and society and within school on the way to go, and also promoting youth creation of projects that these activities that may enhance the education level and that may also increase this youth mobility. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so as to end the session, Ms. Koshia, I would pass the mic to you.
Thank you very much. I'll be very quick. So thank you very much to the panelists and all the distinguished guests today. I mean, I'm a guest, sorry, all the participants who listened and contributed on behalf of the European Union delegation to Namibia as well. I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not swimming in the academic waters like you on a daily basis, so some of my conclusions might not be complete or not be exactly the same as yours, but I'm sure that I hope that this discussion and the Global Gateway partnership between European Union and Africa will steer some food for thoughts and take home messages, takeaway. And I really hope that the contributions that you heard today, these exchanges will continue, because my sense is that the Global Gateway does provide some contributions to addressing some of the challenges that were raised here, maybe not all, some more than others, but I believe that this is about really a trust-based connectivity that we are aiming at engaging into and bringing about. So I don't know if we have any website information.
Yes,
if you
now
like
it's
to
there
engage,
on the screen.
Yes, if you'd like to engage further in the Global Gateway flagship, you can of course get in touch directly with the implementing organizations of those specific programs that I hope that we can also distribute on paper, or yes, the colleagues here say yes. And then, well, if there are potential students, then, like I mentioned, there should be focal points in the African partner countries, as well as institutional international relations department at the university level. But also just wanted to flag, please encourage your students to be part of the youth sounding boards that the EU is currently setting up through our delegations around the world and mainly in Africa, in order to bring the youth perspective more and more into our programs and actions. And your students, for sure, if they are not members of the sounding boards, that they could follow what the board is doing and contribute to this, so that all those concerns that were voiced today and some others can be taken on board and actually verbalize them. And then there is for the broader participation in the initiative and policy discussion, that's the website. And also Anna is here still tomorrow, so you can please do not hesitate to address to her with any issues, any questions about this flagship Global Gateway. Thank you very much, and having an excellent rest of your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists and to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, we will need to rearrange the stage here and bring up the podium. We are not going for tea break. You can just relax for 10 minutes while this is done before we go to the next session. Meanwhile, if you do not mind, the Nigerian delegation that want to take photographs together can come up now to take their photographs. Nigeria delegation.
Actually, I would have loved to have, if we still have some minutes, maybe we can take, is it okay if we take a picture? Yes, a picture with the roll-up, if we can have a few minutes. But I wanted you in the end.
Photographers, where are you?
I take a photo and then I will find you because I... Thank you. I'll just wait for you.
Let's change the chairs too. What? You are biased. I'm sorry, yes, you are correct. I should add Ghana. Tell them. Okay.
Are you a university, college, high school, private organization, NGO, individual professor, instructor or facilitator seeking to take advantage of the numerous benefits of online education? Look no further. The AAU eLearn Africa LMS is a great opportunity to begin your journey to online course development and creation for teaching, learning and training purposes. AAU eLearn Africa LMS, which is a partnership between the Association of African Universities and eLearn Africa, has made available ease to use online learning tools to all stakeholders within the educational ecosystem of the African continent. This is to enhance teaching and learning in the bid to expand online learning opportunities for students in Africa. The online platform is open and available for free to all stakeholders and facilitates virtual access to classes without needing the other tools such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, among others. For more information, visit www.elearnafricalms.com or contact us via aauLMS@aau.org or estherm@elearnafrica.com. Follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at AAU eLearn Africa LMS.
Hey, so this is Dishant from Unica University Common Application. I recommend you to watch AAU television.
AAU TV is the place to be for every person in higher education in Africa. Better be there or be nowhere.
Continuez de regarder la télé et surtout sur le AAU.
Keep watching it and it will change the way you interact with higher education on the continent. AAU, great job.
I want to tell you that AAU television is fantastic, it's educative, it's informative, and it is a must for anybody who is interested in higher education in Africa.
When I was in Accra last year, I did an interview on this TV. It's a very important mouthpiece.
It's a data, it's a bank of all we need for the development of higher education in Africa.
People should make an effort to view it because it discusses very current issues of development across the continent.
I believe that the station will continue to promote the overall development of Africa, particularly in the tertiary education sector.
AAU TV provides a platform